In a quiet corner of the galaxy, far away from Earth's blue skies and bustling cities, an alien species known as the Varnock had been watching humanity for centuries. To the Varnock, humans were nothing more than chaotic creatures living on a fragile planet. They saw Earth as a place filled with division, fear, and endless conflict. The Varnock believed that humanity was weak and harmless, barely worth their attention. But all of that changed one fateful day when something extraordinary happened. It started with a strange signal detected by the Varnock's long-range scanners. At first, they thought it was just another solar flare or some random cosmic event. But then something incredible unfolded. From Earth's atmosphere, a massive energy surge erupted, brighter than any star in the night sky. Moments later, the skies above the planet split open like a curtain being pulled back. Through this rift emerged colossal starships, sleek and menacing, each one larger than even the tallest skyscrapers humanity had ever built. The Varnock watched in stunned silence as these enormous ships positioned themselves in orbit around Earth. What terrified them most wasn't just the size of the vessels, it was the technology behind them. These weren't human-made machines. They appeared to have materialized out of nowhere, defying every law of physics the Varnock knew. The ships seemed to hum with an otherworldly power, their surfaces shimmering as if alive. Panic spread across the Varnock command center. For years, they had considered invading Earth to exploit its resources. But now, faced with this sudden display of power, they realized they might be staring at their own doom. As news of Earth's transformation reached other civilizations, fear rippled throughout the galaxy. No one understood how such advanced weaponry could appear so suddenly on a planet that barely registered as a blip on interstellar maps. Some speculated it was divine intervention, while others whispered about ancient prophecies foretelling humanity's demise. Whatever the truth, one thing became clear. Earth was no longer vulnerable. Back on Earth, life went on as usual, at least for a little while. People went to work, children played in parks, and cities buzzed with activity. No one noticed the strange energy readings or the subtle shifts in the atmosphere. But then, late one evening, the skies began to change. Clouds parted unnaturally, revealing a deep, glowing fissure that stretched across the horizon. It looked like the heavens themselves were splitting open. People stopped what they were doing and stared upward, their faces filled with awe and confusion. Some took videos with their phones while others prayed, believing it to be a sign from God. Within moments, the first ship emerged. It was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Its surface gleamed with a metallic sheen, yet it seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The ship was shaped like a dagger, sharp and deadly, with rows of glowing panels along its sides. As it hovered silently above the planet, more ships followed, each one equally massive and intimidating. Soon, there were dozens of them surrounding Earth like sentinels guarding a treasure. Governments around the world scrambled to respond. Military satellites confirmed the presence of the ships, but none of the world's scientists could explain where they came from or who controlled them. Conspiracies ran rampant. Some claimed aliens had gifted the ships to humanity, while others believed rogue nations had secretly developed the technology over decades. Amid the chaos, leaders convened an emergency global summit to decide what to do next. But there was another problem brewing. Unknown to most people, Earth had already attracted unwanted attention from several hostile extraterrestrial races. One such group, the Zixari, had sent a fleet of warships toward Earth months earlier, intending to conquer the planet and enslave its population. When reports came in that the Zixari fleet was nearing Earth's solar system, panic turned into outright terror. Humanity was completely unprepared to face such an invasion, let alone defend itself against an enemy capable of traversing light years. It was during this darkest hour that a cryptic message appeared on every communication device on Earth, simultaneously. Written in perfect English, French, Mandarin, Hindi, Arabic, and dozens of other languages, the message read, "We are here to protect you." No signature followed, leaving humanity to wonder who or what had taken control of the Star Destroyers. Despite the uncertainty, many saw this as their only hope. With no time left to debate, World leaders unanimously agreed to trust the mysterious benefactors and prepare for battle. Meanwhile, the Varnock continued to monitor the situation from afar. Their scientists worked tirelessly to analyze the ship's technology, hoping to find a weakness. But the more they studied, the more baffled they became. The ships emitted energy signatures unlike anything they had encountered before. Even their most advanced probes couldn't penetrate the shields surrounding the vessels. It was as if the laws of physics themselves had been rewritten. Fear gripped the Varnock leadership. For centuries, they had prided themselves on being one of the most powerful races in the galaxy. Now they felt small and insignificant compared to whatever force had placed those ships in Earth's orbit. Some argued that they should retreat and leave Earth alone, while others insisted on launching a preemptive strike before it was too late. The debate raged on, but one thing was certain. Earth was no longer the weak, defenseless planet they had once dismissed. As days passed, the tension grew thicker. On Earth, people tried to go about their daily lives, but the presence of the Star Destroyers loomed over everything. Schools held emergency drills in case of an attack, and grocery stores saw panicked shoppers stocking up on supplies. Yet, amidst the chaos, there was also a sense of hope. For the first time in history, humanity felt protected, not by its own strength, but by a power greater than itself. The Varnock, however, couldn't shake the feeling that they were witnessing the beginning of something much bigger. They had always assumed that Earth would remain a footnote in galactic history, a minor planet destined to be conquered or ignored. But now, they wondered if they had underestimated humanity all along. Perhaps the appearance of the Star Destroyers wasn't just a coincidence. Maybe it was a sign that Earth was meant to play a role in shaping the future of the galaxy. Unbeknownst to both the Varnock and humanity, the true architects of this phenomenon were watching from the shadows. They had waited eons for this moment, carefully orchestrating events to bring humanity to the brink of greatness. The Star Destroyers were only the beginning. Soon Earth would find itself thrust into a conflict that would test not only its strength, but also its unity and resolve. For now, though, the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Would humanity rise to meet its destiny, or would it crumble under the weight of its newfound responsibilities? Only time would tell. As the Star Destroyers continued to hover silently in Earth's orbit, humanity found itself caught between awe and terror. The sheer size and power of the ships were enough to make anyone feel small and insignificant. But what truly unsettled people was the uncertainty surrounding their origin. Who had sent these massive vessels? Were they friends or foes? And why had they chosen this moment to reveal themselves? While some saw the Star Destroyers as a miracle, a shield protecting Earth from impending doom, others couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was being manipulated by forces it didn't understand. Back on Earth, chaos reigned supreme. Governments around the world scrambled to make sense of the situation. Military satellites tracked every movement of the ships, but no matter how many tests they ran, scientists couldn't determine how the destroyers worked or who controlled them. Conspiracy theories multiplied overnight. Some believed the ships were built by a secret organization within Earth's own governments, hidden away for years in underground facilities. Others claimed aliens had gifted the technology to humanity as a gesture of goodwill, or perhaps as a warning. A few even suggested the ships were remnants of an ancient human civilization, lost to time and rediscovered only now. Amid the confusion, leaders convened an emergency global summit. For the first time in history, representatives from nearly every nation gathered under one roof to discuss Earth's future. The United Nations headquarters in New York became the center of activity, with diplomats, scientists, and military officials working around the clock. Tensions ran high as arguments broke out over how to handle the situation. Should humanity try to communicate with whoever controlled the ships? Or should they prepare for the worst-case scenario, a betrayal? While the leaders debated, ordinary people struggled to cope with the changes unfolding before their eyes. In cities across the globe, crowds gathered in public squares to stare up at the sky, pointing at the massive ships looming above. Social media exploded with videos and photos of the Star Destroyers, each post accompanied by wild speculation. Families huddled together in living rooms, glued to news broadcasts that offered little clarity. Schools closed temporarily as parents kept their children home, unsure of what might happen next. Grocery stores saw frantic shoppers clearing shelves of canned goods, bottled water, and other essentials. Fear spread like wildfire, fueled by rumors of an imminent alien invasion. But there was another problem brewing, one that not everyone knew about yet. Unknown to most people, Earth had already attracted unwanted attention from several hostile extraterrestrial races. One such group, the Zixari, had sent a fleet of warships toward Earth months earlier, intending to conquer the planet and enslave its population. The Zixari were ruthless warriors known for their brutal tactics and insatiable hunger for resources. They viewed weaker civilizations as nothing more than stepping stones on their path to galactic domination. When reports came in that the Zixari fleet was nearing Earth's solar system, panic turned into outright terror. Humanity was completely unprepared to face such an invasion, let alone defend itself against an enemy capable of traversing light years. Military analysts estimated that the Zixari fleet would arrive within weeks, leaving precious little time to prepare. Even the most advanced nations on Earth lacked the firepower to stand against an interstellar army. It seemed inevitable that the planet would fall under Zixari control, condemning billions to slavery or worse. It was during this darkest hour that a cryptic message appeared on every communication device on Earth simultaneously. Written in perfect English, French, Mandarin, Hindi, Arabic, and dozens of other languages, the message read, "We are here to protect you." No signature followed, leaving humanity to wonder who or what had taken control of the star destroyers. Despite the uncertainty, many saw this as their only hope. With no time left to debate, world leaders unanimously agreed to trust the mysterious benefactors and prepare for battle. The message brought a mix of relief and unease. On one hand, it reassured people that the Star Destroyers weren't just passive observers. They were actively committed to defending Earth. On the other hand, the lack of explanation raised troubling questions. Why had these ships appeared now, after centuries of humanity's vulnerability? What did their creators want in return for their protection? And most importantly, could humanity really rely on them? In the days that followed, efforts intensified to fortify Earth's defenses. Militaries around the world mobilized their troops, deploying weapons and equipment near major cities. Engineers worked tirelessly to reinforce infrastructure, knowing that even the smallest breach could lead to catastrophe. Scientists collaborated to develop new technologies, hoping to find ways to support the Star Destroyers in case they needed backup. Meanwhile, civilians prepared for the worst, building makeshift shelters and stockpiling supplies. Despite these preparations, fear lingered in the air. People couldn't help but wonder if the Star Destroyer's arrival was too good to be true. Had humanity been saved or merely bought time before facing an even greater threat? Some pointed out that the ship's sudden appearance coincided suspiciously with the Zixari's approach, suggesting they might have been sent specifically to counter the invaders. If that was true, then who had anticipated the attack? And why hadn't they intervened sooner? As the days passed, strange phenomena began occurring worldwide. Unidentified flying objects were spotted hovering near major cities, their movements erratic and unpredictable. Electromagnetic disturbances disrupted communications, causing blackouts in several regions. Witnesses reported hearing low-frequency hums in areas where no sound should exist. These events added to the growing sense of unease, fueling fears that Earth's protectors might not be entirely benevolent. Meanwhile, the Varnok, an alien species monitoring Earth from afar, watched the unfolding drama with a mix of fascination and dread. Like others in the galaxy, they had initially dismissed humanity as weak and divided, but the appearance of the Star Destroyers forced them to reconsider. Could Earth truly pose a threat to more advanced civilizations? Or was it simply a pawn in a larger game played by powers beyond comprehension? For the Varnok, the stakes were higher than ever. They had long considered invading Earth to exploit its resources, seeing the planet as an untapped gold mine. But now, faced with the prospect of battling the Star Destroyers, they realized such an attempt would be suicidal. Their leaders convened emergency meetings, debating whether to retreat entirely or launch a preemptive strike before it was too late. The decision weighed heavily on them, knowing that failure could mean extinction. On Earth, however, the focus remained on survival. As the countdown to the Zixari's arrival continued, humanity clung to hope, praying that the Star Destroyers would live up to their promise. Yet beneath the surface, doubts simmered. Was this newfound protection a blessing, or a curse in disguise? Only time would tell. And so the stage was set for a confrontation unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Zixari fleet drew closer with each passing day, its shadow looming over Earth like a storm cloud. Humanity waited anxiously, unsure of what lay ahead. Would the Star Destroyers prove to be saviors or something far more sinister? Whatever the outcome, one thing was certain. Earth would never be the same again. The day finally arrived. The Zixari fleet, a sprawling armada of sleek warships and menacing cruisers, entered Earth's solar system with all the subtlety of a storm cloud rolling in. From their vantage point aboard the command ship, the Zixari, leaders sneered at the primitive blue planet below. They had expected resistance, perhaps a few outdated missiles or fighter jets, but nothing that could stand against their overwhelming force. What they saw instead made them pause. Orbiting Earth were the Star Destroyers, massive and silent, their surfaces gleaming like polished steel under the light of the sun. The Zixari had no idea what these ships were or where they came from. But one thing was clear: humanity was not as defenseless as they had assumed. Confident in their superiority, the Zixari launched their assault without hesitation. Hundreds of heavily armed fighters and bombers surged forward, their engines roaring as they descended toward Earth's atmosphere. Plasma torpedoes streaked through space, aimed at the Star Destroyers. To the Zixari, this was going to be an easy victory, a quick show of dominance to remind the universe who held the real power. But the Star Destroyers didn't flinch. As soon as the first wave of Zixari weapons reached them, the destroyers sprang into action. Massive beams of energy erupted from their hulls, slicing through the enemy forces with devastating precision. Entire squadrons of Zixari fighters disintegrated in seconds, unable to withstand the overwhelming firepower. The beams moved with unnatural speed, targeting every threat with surgical accuracy. It was as if the destroyers had anticipated the Zixari's every move before it happened. From the surface, humanity watched in awe as the battle unfolded in the heavens above. News outlets broadcast live footage of the skirmish, showing the Zixari fleet crumbling under the relentless assault. People gathered in streets and parks, staring up at the sky with a mix of fear and wonder. Some cheered, overcome with relief and pride, while others prayed silently, hoping this wasn't just the calm before an even greater storm. Social media lit up with posts sharing videos and reactions, each comment reflecting the collective disbelief of billions. "Is this really happening?" one user wrote. Another replied, "We're winning. We're actually winning." The Zixari tried to retaliate, unleashing volleys of plasma torpedoes and laser cannons at the Star Destroyers. But their attacks bounced harmlessly off the destroyers' impenetrable shields. No matter how hard they hit, the ships remained unscathed, their surfaces shimmering faintly as if mocking the invaders. Frustration mounted among the Zixari commanders. How could such primitive beings possess technology far beyond anything they had ever encountered? Their arrogance turned to panic as they realized they were outmatched. As the battle raged on, the Star Destroyers began taking the fight directly to the Zixari fleet. Sleek fighter craft emerged from the destroyers' hangars, darting through space with incredible agility. These smaller ships worked in perfect harmony, weaving between the larger vessels to pick off stragglers. Each movement was calculated, each strike precise. It was as if the entire operation was being orchestrated by a single mind, or perhaps something more advanced than human intelligence. On the ground, people marveled at the coordination of the attack. Military analysts scrambled to understand how the Star Destroyers operated, but their efforts yielded little insight. The ships seemed to defy logic, moving faster than should have been possible, and firing weapons that appeared to harness energy from another dimension. Even the most seasoned generals admitted they had never seen anything like it. "This isn't just advanced technology," one expert said during a televised interview. "It's almost supernatural." Despite their growing desperation, the Zixari refused to give up. They regrouped and launched a final desperate assault, throwing everything they had at the Star Destroyers. For a brief moment, it looked like they might break through. A cluster of Zixari cruisers managed to slip past the destroyer's defenses, heading straight for Earth's atmosphere. Alarms blared across the planet as military forces prepared for the worst. Civilians huddled in shelters, bracing for impact. But the Star Destroyers weren't done yet. With a sudden burst of speed, two of the colossal ships moved to intercept the incoming cruisers. Beams of light shot out from their turrets, tearing through the Zixari vessels like paper. Within moments, the threat was neutralized. Cheers erupted around the world as news spread that Earth was safe. For now. The remaining Zixari ships fled, retreating back toward the edge of the solar system. They knew they couldn't win, not against such overwhelming odds. As they disappeared into the void, the Star Destroyers pursued them briefly before returning to their positions around Earth, ensuring the planet remained secure. Though victorious, questions lingered. Who had given humanity access to such incredible technology? And why had they chosen to intervene now, after millennia of silence? While some celebrated the unexpected triumph, others grew uneasy, suspecting there might be strings attached to this newfound protection. Governments convened emergency meetings to discuss next steps, but no one had any concrete answers. All they knew was that Earth owed its survival to the mysterious benefactors controlling the Star Destroyers. In the days that followed, life on Earth slowly returned to normal, or at least as close to normal as it could get under the circumstances. Schools reopened, businesses resumed operations, and people went back to their daily routines. But the presence of the Star Destroyers loomed over everything, a constant reminder that humanity's fate was no longer entirely its own. Many wondered what price would come due for this unexpected salvation. News of Earth's unexpected defense spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Civilizations that had once dismissed humanity as insignificant began to take notice. Some viewed the event as proof that Earth was destined for greatness, while others saw it as a warning sign. Among those watching closely were the Varnok, still shaken by the initial discovery. They found themselves facing intense scrutiny from their allies, who accused them of withholding critical intelligence about Earth's capabilities. For the first time in centuries, the Varnok felt vulnerable, their plans for conquest abandoned altogether. Meanwhile, smaller factions started reaching out to humanity, seeking alliances or trade agreements in hopes of gaining favor with the newly empowered species. Envoys from distant planets arrived in orbit, requesting permission to dock with the Star Destroyers. Humanity's leaders debated whether to trust these newcomers, unsure of their intentions. Were they genuinely interested in friendship, or did they see Earth as a stepping stone to greater power? Back on Earth, strange phenomena continued to occur. Unidentified flying objects were spotted hovering near major cities, their movements erratic and unpredictable. Electromagnetic disturbances disrupted communications, causing blackouts in several regions. Witnesses reported hearing low-frequency hums in areas where no sound should exist. These events added to the growing sense of unease, fueling fears that Earth's protectors might not be entirely benevolent. Despite the uncertainty, humanity pressed on. Scientists worked tirelessly to study the Star Destroyers, hoping to unlock their secrets. Engineers collaborated to develop new technologies, inspired by the ship's designs, knowing that Earth needed to prepare for whatever challenges lay ahead. Meanwhile, philosophers and theologians debated the implications of humanity's sudden ascension. Was this a sign of divine intervention? Or was Earth simply a pawn in a larger cosmic game? For now, though, the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Would humanity rise to meet its destiny, or would it crumble under the weight of its newfound responsibilities? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: Earth was no longer alone. The victory over the Zixari fleet sent shockwaves across the galaxy. For centuries, Earth had been nothing more than a footnote in interstellar history, a primitive planet teetering on the edge of chaos. But now, thanks to the Star Destroyers, humanity had proven itself capable of standing toe-to-toe with one of the most feared races in the cosmos. News of the battle spread like wildfire, reaching civilizations light years away. Some viewed Earth's newfound strength as a beacon of hope, while others saw it as a threat to galactic stability. Either way, no one could ignore the fact that humanity was no longer weak or insignificant. Among those watching closely were the Kalith Dominion, a ruthless empire known for crushing any civilization that dared challenge their dominance. The Kalith had long prided themselves on being the undisputed rulers of their sector of the galaxy. Their vast fleets and advanced technology ensured that smaller races either submitted to their authority or faced annihilation. When reports reached them about Earth's unexpected rise, the Kalith leadership convened an emergency meeting. They were not pleased. "We cannot allow this," growled Commander Vrax, a towering alien with armored skin and glowing eyes. His voice echoed through the dimly lit war room aboard the Kalith flagship. "If we let this humanity, this upstart species, continue unchecked, others will see them as a rival. We must act now before they become too powerful." The other leaders nodded in agreement. To the Kalith, Earth's sudden ascension was unacceptable. It disrupted the delicate balance of power they had worked so hard to maintain. Determined to prevent humanity from becoming a rival, the Kalith dispatched emissaries to negotiate Earth's surrender. If diplomacy failed, they vowed to annihilate the planet entirely. On Earth, tensions mounted as humanity grappled with its new role on the cosmic stage. Leaders debated whether to trust the Star Destroyers' creators or seek independence from their mysterious benefactors. Public opinion was divided. Some hailed the intervention as salvation, while others feared humanity was trading one form of oppression for another. Amid the uncertainty, strange phenomena continued to occur worldwide. Unidentified flying objects hovered near major cities, their movements erratic and unpredictable. Electromagnetic disturbances disrupted communications, causing blackouts in several regions. Witnesses reported hearing low-frequency hums in areas where no sound should exist. These events added to the growing sense of unease, fueling fears that Earth's protectors might not be entirely benevolent. When the Kalith emissaries arrived in orbit, their massive ships dwarfed even the Star Destroyers. The Kalith vessels were jagged and menacing, their surfaces covered in spiky protrusions that glowed faintly red. Humanity held its breath as the emissaries transmitted a message demanding an audience with Earth's leaders. The message was brief and devoid of emotion. "You are summoned to discuss terms of compliance. Failure to cooperate will result in your extinction." The ultimatum sent shockwaves through the global community. World leaders gathered once again at the United Nations headquarters, their faces grim as they weighed their options. Military advisors urged caution, warning that the Kalith were far more dangerous than the Zixari. Scientists argued that Earth needed more time to study the Star Destroyers and develop its own defenses. Meanwhile, civilians took to the streets, holding protests and vigils, praying for peace but preparing for war. As humanity deliberated, the Kalith grew impatient. Their emissaries began broadcasting propaganda messages directly into people's homes, claiming that submission was the only way to ensure survival. "Resistance is futile," the messages declared. "Join us, and you will prosper. Defy us, and you will perish." Despite the pressure, humanity refused to back down. Emboldened by their recent victory over the Zixari, leaders decided to meet the Kalith emissaries face-to-face. A delegation of diplomats, scientists, and military officials boarded a specially equipped spacecraft and traveled to the Kalith flagship. The journey was tense, with everyone aware that failure could mean the end of life on Earth. When the humans entered the Kalith war room, they were met with cold stares from the alien commanders. Commander Vrax stood at the center, his towering frame exuding menace. He wasted no time with pleasantries. "Your species has overstepped its bounds," he snarled. "You have been granted power you do not deserve. surrender it to us, or face the consequences. The human delegation remained calm, though their hearts raced. Ambassador Elena Carter, a seasoned diplomat chosen to lead the team, stepped forward. Her voice was steady as she addressed the Caliph. "Earth belongs to humanity," she said firmly. "We did not ask for this power, but we will use it to defend ourselves if necessary. We seek peace, but we will not bow to threats, Commander." Vrax sneered. "You think your little toys can stand against us?" The Zixari were weaklings compared to the Caliph Dominion. You would be wise to reconsider. Ambassador Carter exchanged glances with her team. They knew the odds were stacked against them. The Caliph fleet was larger and more advanced than anything humanity had faced before. But they also knew that backing down now would only embolden the Caliph further. With a deep breath, Carter replied, "We are prepared to fight for our freedom. If you wish to test us, so be it." The tension in the room was palpable. For a moment, it seemed as though the Caliph might launch an immediate attack. But then, something unexpected happened. One of the Star Destroyers moved closer to the Caliph flagship, its massive bulk casting a shadow over the alien vessel. A single beam of light shot out, striking the flagship's hull without causing damage. It was a warning. A clear message that the Star Destroyers were ready to intervene if necessary. Commander Vrax clenched his fists, visibly seething. He knew better than to underestimate the Star Destroyers after what had happened to the Zixari. Reluctantly, he ordered his emissaries to withdraw. "This is not over," he growled. "You have been warned." Back on Earth, the delegation returned to a hero's welcome. People celebrated the fact that humanity had stood its ground against such a formidable foe. But behind closed doors, leaders knew the reprieve was temporary. The Caliph would return, and when they did, they would come with overwhelming force. In the weeks that followed, humanity worked tirelessly to prepare for the inevitable conflict. Scientists collaborated with engineers to reverse engineer the Star Destroyer's technology, hoping to create weapons and defenses of their own. Military forces conducted drills, simulating battles against superior enemies. Civilians joined volunteer programs to train for emergencies, knowing that every effort counted. Meanwhile, the galaxy watched with bated breath. Smaller factions began reaching out to Earth, offering alliances and trade agreements in hopes of gaining favor with the newly empowered species. Some even proposed forming a coalition to counter the Caliph's influence. Humanity's leaders debated these offers carefully, aware that choosing the wrong allies could have dire consequences. But amidst all the preparations and negotiations, strange occurrences continued to plague Earth. The unidentified flying objects became more frequent, appearing in daylight skies and hovering silently above cities. People reported seeing flashes of light in remote areas, accompanied by strange humming noises. In some cases, witnesses claimed to have encountered beings, clad in shimmering robes, their faces obscured by hoods. These encounters left many questioning whether the Star Destroyer's creators were truly friends, or something far more enigmatic. As days turned into weeks, humanity braced itself for the storm ahead. The Caliph's withdrawal had bought them time, but everyone knew it wouldn't last forever. Questions lingered about who controlled the Star Destroyers and what price they might demand for their protection. Yet, despite the uncertainty, there was a sense of unity among humans that hadn't existed before. For the first time in history, nations put aside their differences and worked together toward a common goal. And so, Earth waited, its fate hanging in the balance. Would humanity rise to meet the challenges ahead, or would it crumble under the weight of its newfound responsibilities? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: Earth was no longer alone, and its place in the galaxy was about to change forever. Just as humanity prepared to brace itself for the inevitable return of the Caliph, something extraordinary happened. It was late one night, when a lone figure appeared in the United Nations Assembly Hall without warning. One moment, the room was empty except for security personnel. The next, the figure stood at the center of the chamber, radiating an aura of calm authority. Clad in shimmering robes that seemed to ripple like liquid light, the visitor introduced himself simply as the architect. His voice resonated through the room, deep and melodic, carrying a weight that silenced even the most skeptical minds. He revealed that he and his kind had been observing Earth for eons, waiting for the moment when humanity would prove itself worthy of joining the galactic community. According to the architect, the Star Destroyers were part of a grand experiment designed to test humanity's resilience and unity. By thrusting Earth into a high-stakes conflict, they hoped to determine whether humans possessed the qualities needed to thrive among the stars. The revelation sent shockwaves through the gathered leaders. Some listened with rapt attention, while others exchanged wary glances, unsure if this being could be trusted. The architect explained that his species, known only as the Overseers, were ancient guardians tasked with guiding younger civilizations toward maturity. They did not interfere lightly, but believed that humanity's potential outweighed its flaws. Earth, he said, had shown flashes of brilliance throughout history, moments of creativity, innovation, and cooperation that hinted at greatness. But these moments were often overshadowed by division, greed, and fear. The arrival of the Zixari fleet had been the catalyst they needed to push humanity to its limits. "You proved yourselves capable of standing together," the architect continued, his glowing eyes scanning the room. "When faced with annihilation, you chose hope over despair. That is why we intervened. Not because you are perfect, but because you have the capacity to grow." Despite his words, skepticism lingered. A representative from Russia spoke up, voicing what many were thinking. "If you are truly here to help us, why all the secrecy? Why not reveal yourselves earlier? And what do you want from us now?" The architect nodded, acknowledging the question. "Secrecy was necessary," he replied. "Exposing your species too soon would have stunted your growth. You needed to face challenges on your own terms before stepping onto the galactic stage. As for what we want, nothing. We seek only to ensure the survival of intelligent life. Across the cosmos, your rise is not ours to claim. It belongs to you." Before anyone could respond, the architect turned to leave. But before vanishing as mysteriously as he had arrived, he left behind a final gift. A set of coordinates leading to a hidden cache buried deep beneath Earth's surface. "Within lies knowledge and tools that may aid you in the battles to come," he said cryptically. "Use them wisely." With renewed determination, humanity set out to uncover the secrets of the cache. Teams of scientists, engineers, and military personnel worked around the clock to locate it. Using advanced imaging technology borrowed from the Star Destroyers, they pinpointed its location deep within the Arctic Circle. Excavation efforts began immediately, despite harsh weather conditions and logistical challenges. Weeks later, the team broke through a thick layer of ice to reveal a massive metallic door embedded in the frozen ground. Etched into its surface were intricate patterns resembling constellations. When touched, the door slid open with a low hum, revealing a cavernous chamber filled with strange artifacts and glowing devices. Among them were sleek weapons, holographic maps of the galaxy, and scrolls containing information written in languages no one recognized. At the center of the chamber stood a pedestal holding a crystalline orb, pulsating with energy. Scientists marveled at the discoveries, realizing they had stumbled upon a treasure trove of alien technology far beyond anything humanity had ever imagined. The weapons alone were enough to level entire cities, yet they seemed designed for precision rather than destruction. Holographic maps depicted star systems humanity had never explored, hinting at uncharted territories teeming with possibilities. And the scrolls, though indecipherable at first, began to yield their secrets after weeks of painstaking analysis. As humanity studied the cache, the galaxy watched closely. News of the discovery spread quickly, sparking both admiration and envy among other civilizations. Smaller factions renewed their attempts to form alliances with Earth, hoping to gain access to the newfound technology. Meanwhile, larger empires like the Caliph grew increasingly agitated, viewing the cache as proof that humanity posed a growing threat. It wasn't long before the Caliph made their move. Determined to eliminate Earth once and for all, they launched a massive invasion fleet aimed directly at the planet. This time, however, humanity was ready. Armed with knowledge and tools from the cache, Earth's forces coordinated with the Star Destroyers to mount a fierce defense. The battle that ensued was unlike anything seen before. Humanity's fighters, equipped with advanced weaponry adapted from the cache, darted through space with unparalleled agility. Ground-based installations fired beams of concentrated energy capable of disabling entire enemy ships. And the Star Destroyers themselves unleashed devastating barrages, obliterating waves of Calith vessels with ease. For days, the skies above Earth burned with the fury of war. Civilians huddled in shelters, praying for victory, while soldiers fought with every ounce of courage they possessed. Slowly but surely, the tide turned in humanity's favor. The Calith fleet, once thought invincible, began to falter under the relentless assault. In a final act of desperation, Commander Vrax ordered a kamikaze attack on the largest Star Destroyer. But even this failed, as the destroyer's shields absorbed the impact without so much as a scratch. Defeated and humiliated, the Calith retreated, vowing revenge. But their departure marked a turning point for humanity. For the first time, Earth had not only defended itself but also claimed victory against one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. The feat earned respect and fear from civilizations across the stars. In the aftermath of the battle, humanity reflected on how far it had come. From a divided and fragile species, it had risen to become a force to be reckoned with. Yet the journey was far from over. The architect's words echoed in the minds of leaders and citizens alike. Your rise is not ours to claim. It belongs to you. Humanity knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. The galaxy was vast and unpredictable, filled with dangers and opportunities alike. But for the first time, Earth stood united, not as victims, but as equals in the great expanse of the cosmos. Whatever lay ahead, humanity was ready to face it head-on,